Today we're taking a look at some more NHL offseason trade speculation, looking at teams like the New York Rangers, Chicago Blackhawks, and the San Jose Sharks. We'll jump into the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, of course, as always, before we jump into today's content, I just want to take a second to acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Manscaped offers 20% off and free shipping to all Top Shelf Hockey viewers. They have terrific products, great customer service, and I highly recommend you consider checking them out. That's 20% off and free shipping with code TSH at Manscaped.com. Now, jumping into today's offseason rumor talk, let's start here with the San Jose Sharks. Now, we talked a bit yesterday about some players who could end up with the Seattle Kraken, and one of those players was Brent Burns. Now, many believe that the Sharks very well could have more significant turnover than just Burns. Unfortunately, they're going to have some contracts that are probably pretty much immovable. We're looking at guys like Vlasic, Carlson, possibly Martin Jones. They would have a really hard time moving those contracts if they ever really wanted to. And under the three, I would imagine Jones would be right at the top of the list. However, getting somebody to take that on is not going to be an easy task. They don't have a great amount of prospects really deep in their prospect pool, so it's not like they can really be offering up a lot here to kind of give teams incentives to take bad contracts. So clearly San Jose is a team that could have more significant movement, and a couple of those are younger players that are underperforming and not living up to their contracts, which could mean that they're selling low, and it could still mean not as great a return. But guys like Timo, Meier, and Kevin Labanc are both in the rumor mill as possible trade candidates for the Sharks this offseason. Obviously, the Sharks need a variety of things to move forward and to really improve and get better. They absolutely need to be able to find a way to get better goaltending. Martin Jones can at best be the backup next year. If they can find a way out of that contract, that would be preferable. But like I said, probably pretty much untradeable, and buying it out at this point still it would be too expensive most likely. So I can't see them likely going down that road just yet, although it likely will happen before the contract is fully expired. But guys like Meier and Labanc could be very attractive pieces to many other NHL teams looking for that middle six winger, and still in their prime years, making a decent amount of money, but not an exorbitant amount. And if they can get back to playing the way they're capable of, then they would certainly be a really solid pickup. I mean, the Sharks might not go down this road after all, because they'd be selling low, as I mentioned, on these guys. But, given the fact of where things are at with the Sharks, I think they really need to be able to sell something that has more value to get something back that has value to make the team better moving forward. I mean, they have some other veteran guys too that likely don't get moved, like Evander Kane and Logan Couture, to name a couple more. Obviously, Patrick Marleau might return, but that's a whole other set of questions here. But, these guys could return themselves a pretty good trade value for the Sharks if they can get the right deal here. I mean, the Sharks did do a pretty good job of brokering some deals at the deadline when it comes to helping out some other teams, kind of weaponizing their cap space here a little bit, get a few extra draft picks. That currency could come handy as well in the offseason. So I'm sure Doug Wilson is mulling over a variety of options, and it'd be interesting to see what direction they go in. But don't be surprised if you see the Sharks move at least one of their younger players in their prime, like Meier or Labanc. Now, moving on to another team that's going to be looking to make some moves here. That's the upstart New York Rangers. Now, the Rangers are a team that's obviously gone through a bit of a rebuild. They're kind of at that stage now where they're starting to challenge for playoffs. They made some noise last year, came really close. This year, they're kind of in that same boat, and except the year's not over. They could still possibly get in. These next couple games with the Islanders are going to be absolutely paramount for that. And of course, they're battling here, trying to catch the Islanders and Bruins for one of those final spots, and it ain't over yet. So it is possible they could get in. But they've seen tremendous growth this year from guys like Adam Fox, who's down in the Norris Trophy conversation. Even though Zibanejad started slow, he's found his groove and one of the league's top scorers. You've seen Lafreniere start slow, but really kind of starting to come along as well. Kakko's starting to get better. You're starting to see a lot of these young top players start to show more signs of being those guys longer term here, and they've got still more prospects on the way that are kind of interesting. But one area that many feel that they would likely want to add in the offseason would be an experienced blue liner. I mean, a lot of their top guys now are becoming, fairly young, with the exception of maybe like a guy like Jacob Trouba, who's been around a little bit longer, but they have a lot of youth on their blue line, and mind you, some strong blue liners as well. But adding a guy back there with a little bit more experience, with somebody who's had some, fair bit of playoff experience, ideally somebody who might even have a Stanley Cup to their name, would be preferable. And one name that's being mentioned on the potential UFA market that they could look to target would be Vegas defenseman Alec Martinez. Now, not to say that he may not prefer to stay in Vegas, but they may have a hard time retaining him given their salary cap situation, and they don't have a ton of flexibility going into next year, especially if they don't move a goaltender. I mean, the way Fleury's played this year, I can't imagine they're going to want to move him, and obviously Leonard's got a longer-term deal too, and I don't imagine they really would prefer to move him either. So, really, if they're going to have this much money tied up in goaltending another year, it's going to make things hard when it comes to filling out some of their other roster spots for guys that might need new deals. So a guy like Martinez might not have a choice but to move on because of being a salary cap victim. So a team like the Rangers would certainly be very interesting for a place like him. Obviously, he's going to have likely a good playoff run with Vegas this year. At least that's what we expect. He obviously had a lot of playoff success in a couple Stanley Cups, playing with the Los Angeles Kings for a long time, and could be a great veteran idea to add to the Rangers blue line to help out these young guys and just be that veteran guy that's kind of help take them along here. I mean, we've seen like Jake Muzzin, for example, go to Toronto, obviously add that level of experience as well. Like it's just something that teams really need. They need some veteran presence back there to help the young guys along, show them how to win, show them how to be pros, and it can go a long way to helping the team really garner a lot of success. You need a good mix back there. You can't have everybody be, young and inexperienced. You have to have some experience. And right now with the Rangers, if you look, they do have that, but it's all mostly in the forward group. So it's same thing with goaltending. Their goalies are young. The blue line's fairly young. Some guys like Brendan Smith might not likely be back next year, I would think. So there's going to be some openings there. So a guy like Martinez would be an interesting pick for New York to consider. There's going to be other guys out there as well, but he's just kind of the prime target that's being discussed by guys like Larry Brooks of the New York Post, suggesting the Rangers make that addition here in the offseason. But the Rangers very well could be a real force here as we move forward the next few years. The amount of young talent that team has is pretty crazy, and as they all slowly start to reach their prime and hit their ceiling, or close to it at least, as they develop, they're going to be a real strong team for a long, long time. They've done a real solid job rebuilding that roster after a long stretch of competitive years, and they only took a few down years to kind of bounce back here, and now they're already knocking on the door to get into the playoffs. And really, if they did get into the playoffs this year, which is still, like I said, a possibility, I would not want to play them. They'd be a team that's playing with a lot of confidence and all that youth that'd be gaining good experience. Like, they could be a dangerous team if they sneak in, so we'll see what happens there. And lastly here, I want to take a look at the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, of course, as we know, teams are going to be making moves ahead of the expansion draft to protect their assets as best they can. And one name in Chicago that could become available is Nikita Zadorov. Now, obviously, we saw them recently sign a guy like Riley Stillman, and some feel that with the signing of Stillman, it could mean that Zadorov's future there is certainly questionable at best. They have a lot of other young blue liners as well that are slowly starting to get more playing time and looking to take on bigger roles here in the next few years. Obviously, guys like Boqvist and Mitchell and Baudin and others are slowly gaining more and more experience here, of which Adam Boqvist, in case you haven't aware, is out for the season with a broken wrist as well. So it's unfortunate for him, but certainly a guy like Zadorov might be expendable, is what we're kind of getting at here for expansion draft purposes, or if they do keep him, then he could be something that's available to Seattle, and which I would think would be an attractive piece. I mean, if you look at the Blackhawks forward group, I would think based on what they can protect there, that there might not be a lot else. Like, it would be more likely would be a guy like Zadorov would be what is picked here as a selection for Seattle. So we will see what happens, but it's another big defenseman that could be available for a lot of other teams to be had here. Now, obviously, he's a big physical guy, but obviously has some of his shortcomings as well, which is why he really battled some trade rumors for a while with the Avalanche before he ended up getting moved to Chicago. Now he's being moved again, but certainly I think would still be an attractive piece for a variety of other NHL teams. So once these first batch of teams here that don't make the playoffs, or their season's going to be done here in relatively short order here in 2 weeks as the NHL season winds down, the teams that are going to be out of the playoffs, there's going to be ramping up on a lot of plans for them. So there could be some trade activity amongst those teams, although it's pretty unlikely that you see that, but you do see the odd deal take place. But then teams will obviously be starting to get ready and making their plans for the full offseason once all the rest of the teams are out of the playoffs, once we have our Stanley Cup champion. So certainly look forward to more activity here in the not too distant future. So let me know your thoughts on these potential moves down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you stick around and subscribe. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news on all 31 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.